Welcome to ibex's webinar on social reputation management. I am John Lunitz, your host. I'd like to take a minute to thank our audience for joining. Like you, I'm looking forward to a lively and informative discussion today. In fact, today we're going to be exploring the benefits and challenges that companies face when integrating a social reputation management (SRM) component into their overall customer experience strategy. In addition, we're going to preview the platform that not only allows organizations to listen to what customers are saying across the vast social media landscape, but more importantly, enables them to harness and utilize the feedback to fortify and grow their brands. To help us explore and unpack these topics, I'd like to welcome Jason Trifon, EVP, ibex Digital and CX. Jason, welcome.
Thanks, John. Pleasure to be here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Weather's not too bad here in Jacksonville. How about yourself?
Good. Toronto, Canada, sunny. A little cool today, but I'll take it. It's been hot the last few days, but nonetheless, it's great to be here. I'll take a minute, if that's okay, John, to just introduce myself, give a little bit of my background to the viewers, and where I've been and what we're up to here at ibex, which we're pretty excited about. That sound good?
Perfect.
So as mentioned, Jason Trifon, pleasure to meet you. I'm the Executive Vice President here at ibex on the digital as well as the CX side of our practice. And what we do here is pretty exciting, where we integrate both social reputation management into our customer experience enterprise feedback management tool. Prior to joining the company in 2015, I founded my own company in the customer experience space back in, 2005, and scaled that company through 42 countries around the world globally. Ended up selling that company in 2012 and stayed on for transition for a couple of years, as one does, and ultimately had the privilege and the opportunity to join ibex, as mentioned, in 2015. And I've been here since, running their customer experience practice, which I'm pretty excited about. So that's a little bit about me, John. How about you?
Well, hey, Jason, I appreciate the introduction. My background is within the financial services industry. I've got over 20 years experience working for large Fortune 500 companies and over 15 years working for BPO and contact center. I'm actually thrilled to be here at ibex. I've been here about 18 months, and I'm the general manager of their financial services vertical. So I appreciate you asking. Hey, Jason, before we get started today, just a couple of housekeeping items. This is going to be an interactive discussion, and one of the tools that we're going to be utilizing is a polling tool. So I'll put the poll up for about 20 to 30 seconds, and then our audience will be able to participate. We will shut the poll down, and then we will look for your comments as we share the results with everybody. Also, for any audience member that has a question, you will see on your screen a Q&A button. We encourage you to enter your question there. And as you can see up on the agenda on the screen, we have time at the end for Jason to field these questions and get you the answer. Hey, Jason, in addition to this, anything else that you're looking to cover today?
No, I'm really looking forward to the opportunity from a high level to talk about social and reputation management, and how that can be a great integrated piece of the customer experience program for businesses and brands globally. And most importantly, these polls, I'm really intrigued about them. That data and the responses that are coming back from everyone really is great for conversation for you and I to talk about with the viewers, but more importantly for myself, it gives me a good indication of what you all are thinking and experiencing. So I'm really excited to cover those, John.
Yeah, there's nothing like real-time feedback. So, hey, let's jump in. But I think it'd be a good baseline if we could start. What is the definition of social reputation management, and why is it such an untapped market?
Wow, what a great opening question. Social media has many different forms or understandings that people have about it. And I think, with the advent of social media, when it came onto the scene, what seemed like so quickly with the advent of Facebook and Twitter, and as it grew from there with Instagram and Pinterest and so on and so forth, it became a messaging forum and an ability for people to conversationalize things that they were experiencing amongst themselves. But over time, it started growing into being a multifaceted domain, which is a great way to put it, where businesses could really tap into all this feedback that's going on and expressions that people are having about their brand. And that there is where the evolution of social and reputation management came forward, where we can help brands be more than just listening and responding to what people are saying about their brand, or what most companies do is just use social media as a broadcast platform. So for example, John, on the screen, I took a quick second here just to jot down some areas of opportunity that really stem from social media. Number one, the world of social media and the domain of the internet gives businesses the capability to really have their own idea hub, or a place where they can listen, put a digital ear, if you will, on the ground to what their customers are experiencing or feeling, or just overall their thoughts and feedbacks, product ideas, etc., for them to do something with that data. And typically the most forward-leaning brands are using that data to drive operational processes, number one. Number two, they're utilizing it as a mechanism as part of their overall customer experience strategy to respond and engage with their customers. But there's so many untapped areas or blind spots, as we call it, that we can help brands uncover in terms of maneuvering they can do with their brand to broaden their exposure, broaden how they handle customer issues in the domain.
I can see why that'd be very valuable, especially if you know your blind spots, right? You don't know what you don't know. Hey,
Right.
Jason, I actually think now will be a good time for one of the polls that we talked about. So I'm going
Beautiful,
to
let's do it.
drop up, yep, up on the screen, and we're going to ask the audience how they're currently managing their reputation on social.
Okay, got it, great.
So we'll leave that up there for a few minutes, and the responses include an in-house team, a public relations firm, a CX outsourcer like ibex, where they're still building their process.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm very interested to see the responses to this, John. Good cross section of questions, so I'm intrigued.
Well, we'll leave the poll open, Jason. We'll let it go 40 seconds this time. We got about 10 more seconds, and then we'll end the poll, and we'll see what the results are. Ooh, looks like it's split here between in-house team, and they're still building their process. So, all right, we're going to shut the poll down, and we will share the results, and then hopefully you should be able to see the results now, and you can see that the results are split. Looks like 2/3 utilize an in-house team, and 1/3 are still building their internal process. Now, did these results surprise you?
Not entirely, and I say that because many companies thus far, although that social media has been around and prevalent for 10 plus years, I'm not surprised to see the respondents at 33% saying that they're still building out their processes. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually great to see. It's great to see that brands are starting to lean in on this, because it really is, really is a blind spot area that many companies have with their overall customer experience management program. And there's a lot of companies out there that should be focusing on this to take their customer experience to the next level. The other thing that's not surprising, John, for me, is that many companies, 67% of the respondents that have voted here, are doing this in-house, and they've got a dedicated team. Now, what's interesting is we see with companies that are doing this in-house is where those teams reside. So social media is an interesting one, because sometimes it will land within the marketing department, or it could land within the customer experience department. And depending on how the business is structuring their social media reputation management listening, the competency of those people can fall in one of those areas. Now, interestingly enough, it normally falls within marketing, because from a marketing perspective, social media absolutely can be one of the greatest forms of engagement with your customers. But typically that revolves an outbound message, then maybe you get a reply on. Whereas from a customer experience perspective with a social media team, usually what the team is doing is engaging, responding, and managing the data as it comes in. But the difficulty there, John, for those teams is aggregating that data, which we can talk about a little bit together as we move along, because that really tends to be the difficulty with as wide open as the internet domain is. How do I get that data, more importantly, in a single pane of glass, and how do I manage it?
I understand. And then one thing that really struck me here is, from a CX outsourcer perspective, that nobody's utilizing the CX outsourcer. So I'd be interested if you could maybe talk a little bit about on what you're doing at ibex, and how you view the SRM strategy as part of the overall CX strategy?
So this is an area that I would call emerging social reputation management, which is where an outsourcer becomes the business behind the business, if you will. And I think a lot of the trepidation that exists out there with companies today is my brand and my flavor. So the way I handle it myself, my brand standards, how we communicate with our customers, we want to lessen cost and have a partner do it, but not many partners are pedigreed enough to do that for them. There's a lot of competency in that pedigree where you need to have a partner that understands flavor, brand standards, communication standards. From a training perspective, has a full and robust training program around being able to be the business behind the business. So I'm not surprised based on the poll results alongside of you, but the interesting thing is this is an emerging category that seems to be accelerating very quickly. As of late, we've had a number of customers that have been reaching out and partnering with us based on our pedigree saying, look, we need someone to do that for us, but it's almost like stepping off the ledge a little bit to partner with a company to then all of a sudden be handling our brand. Now, obviously, we've got a deep pedigree pool here. We know this. We've built programs around it. We've built training around it. But I can understand some of the trepidation that brands do have. But I will say that we're at the tip of the spear here, John, of this becoming mainstream. And I'm excited to see it, because being in the business of being a business behind the business, per se, that this is an area that we have a good running start and a specialty here. But I think from a cost perspective, brands need to be looking at this as well, especially in the day and age of COVID and certain situations going on globally, where a dedicated partner with good competency can help them cross that chasm, if you will.
So if I'm an organization out there and I'm just starting to explore this, I would think from a messaging standpoint, one of the things that they would want to look at is not only the importance of it being a component of their overall strategy, but in order to see what the ROI is on that, they would have to understand what some of the benefits are. Can you talk about some of the benefits that you're seeing and why all of a sudden you see maybe this surge in demand and that you're getting more and more inquiries?
Sure. I think the first thing in terms of a benefit that needs to be talked about is the structure of how social media and reputation management fits into an overall customer experience strategy. So I mentioned earlier about the interdependence in terms of where social media lands. Is it in marketing or is it in customer experience? Normally in the customer experience world, there's a blind spot that exists for companies today where they may have a fully robust customer experience management program or a voice of customer program where they're doing some type of follow-up after an event takes place. And we call this, as you can see on the screen, solicited feedback. But the blind spot that exists is as part of an overarching customer experience program is that unsolicited feedback. Those consumers that maybe the survey didn't reach it to them, maybe they didn't receive or opted to respond to it. Those customers that just from an unsolicited perspective that are free-form responding on their own, no matter which channel they're responding onto on the internet, typically in most cases, even in today's day and age, tends to be a blind spot. So for us here at ibex, we've crafted a full customer experience program that's very robust, almost like a hub and spoke approach, looking at the diagram we see here. For us, our hub, if you will, is the SRM or social reputation management to ensure that those brands don't have that blind spot. It really is, no matter if they're doing event-driven surveys or solicited feedback surveys, it's the core hub, if you will, to make sure that they have that digital ear to the ground so they can feel that customer viewpoint through the floorboards. Then from a spoke approach, as well as a wheel rolling down the road, there's all of the nuances related to enterprise feedback management, voice of customer, multimodal surveys, omni-channel delivery that encompass and incorporate what the overarching strategy is. And I really hope if one of the things that people take away today is it's very uncommon where both are integrated together, unsolicited and solicited feedback. We see it regularly. So don't be embarrassed about it. You're not, an anomaly. It seems to be the norm. if that's happening. And what you need is a partner that consultatively can thread the needle, if you will, on all of those hubs off, or sort of those spokes, John, off of the hub, to construct the program with and for you hand in hand. Here at ibex, we definitely do have that pedigree, but we on a regular basis are working with partners that actually have another vendor that is their social media expert, and we partner with them too consultatively to help them with the structuring of this. So in short, one CX program doesn't necessarily fit for everyone. You can't fit a square peg in a round hole. There's some tailoring and some bespoke naturing to how both elements of unsolicited and solicited come together to form what is the overall CX strategy.
I'm with you. So, I mean, by creating this holistic strategy, that's really, I think, where you're getting into now. So you flip the slide, is really the power of the social reputation management. Because at the end of the day, if you can not only survey your customers and receive the solicited feedback, but figure out how in this vast, internet of social media to basically isolate a single customer review and then utilize that review to help you grow and fortify your brand. There's real power in that.
Absolutely. Number one, you're tramping out that spark of defection before it ignites the landscape, right? And I think a lot of brands they think that they're doing a great job from an overarching perspective on the social reputation management side, but when we actually activate our technology, one of the things that I look at right away, just to show you as an example, very quickly here, is when our system goes live, the first thing I look at, I don't look at data, I don't look at the responses of the commentary, I go directly to the review response times. So what this means is, at a quick glance, from a data visualization perspective, when our tool is installed, we want to know with our customers, how long is it taking for you to actually engage and resolve the customer issue? The second thing we'll look at from a data visualization perspective is how many of those responses that are coming in unsolicited are being responded to. And it's not uncommon, John, for us to see 50, 60, 70, 80% of those responses that are coming in without reply. So, this is the norm. I think the social and reputation management world that we're evolving into as part of an overall customer experience strategy is accelerating quickly. But I'll tell you, it's really not uncommon to see very, very long windows of replies, 30, 40, 50, 60 days after an expression has taken place for a response. And on top of that, a very high percentage of those responses that are coming in that just actually haven't been responded to.
Hey, Jason, I'm with you. Hey, before we get into this, can we go back into the actual platform itself? Because
Sure.
I'd like to, if you wouldn't mind, can we just talk a little bit about some of the power of these widgets that are here on this dashboard, and if you could address if they are customizable or not?
Sure. So from a platform perspective, what I'm showing right now just happens to be ibex's technology. But one of the things that John's asking about, and it's a great term you used, widget. These tiles that you see on the screen, these are completely customizable based on the data visualization view that our customers need to see. Now, I mentioned earlier about bespoke tailoring or consultatively partnering up with our clients to make sure that the program that's being constructed for them is completely in line with what they need to see for their business practices. So on this screen, I actually queued this up for myself as if I was the person that needed to see this data. And there's a number of different things in here that we've structured. So first and foremost, for this particular example, at a click of a button, I can see 5 channels, what we call it. In this case, Google Reviews, Better Business Bureau, Google Play Store, Trustpilot, and Consumer Affairs. Those are the 5 channels that I opted that I wanted to see and aggregate in real time from around the web. So the system's just going out there and listening, that ear on the ground, on those 5 sources to uncover and pull in all of those expressions that are being said about them. Then on this ribbon that you see here, these individual data views that you see, completely customizable. So for me, what I wanted to see was, okay, what's our average review rating currently among those 5 channels that are on the internet that I selected? What is my review response times by my team, whether it's internally or with my partner externally that's doing it for us. The review response rate, so the percentage of responses that are actually being responded to, and then my overall reviews based on the data parameters that I've selected on the calendar that I want to be looking at. But more importantly, all of these data views, John, completely customizable, can be dragged and dropped and so on and so forth. But the interesting thing is with most social and reputation management tools out there, this data visualization view or analytics doesn't exist. Most companies do a really, really good job at aggregating the data and plopping it into a screen for companies, hopefully, to be able to respond from the tool. But what we did is we lifted this from our analytics package, our Power BI package, so that we could infuse both analytics and the actual data that's coming back, the responses, in one tool. And the reason why we did that is when we created the tool, it just wasn't good enough for us to be able to just respond to customers. We needed to know at a quick glance what the data was saying, John, right? And that's a value add that we lifted and shifted so that customers can see that. And you can see as I scroll down,
Yep.
I don't need to drive into the data and with the responses, the system is aggregating the data for me. So for example, if I hover my mouse here over Trustpilot, I can see from June 2020, we had a big breakout in March 2021 where our ratings are increasing over time. For me as the business manager, I want to get into that now. I want to know why, right? So the why is the most important, and you can filter through the data to do that, John. I hope that answered the question for you.
It does. Hey, could you scroll down just a little bit on the lower left, if you don't mind? It looks there. So that looks like you've got some green, yellow, red categories, right? As
Mhm.
well as maybe some sentiment analysis there. Hey, one question, from my background, as I noted when we were introducing ourselves, is, I've got 15 years in the BPO industry. And,
Mhm.
when I was working back at Citi, we actually met with Bain and actually took a class when NPS was first coming out. And I know that's
Yep.
a very standard metric for somebody like me who's got basically a solid contact center background. How is
Right.
that, or is that correlated or related? Because it looks to me similar. I mean, is it correlated? Is it alike, or is it a little different than NPS? Could you just delve into that just a little bit too?
Well, I mean, leveraging the NPS thought processing, what we wanted to do was to take all the data, right? So in this case, there's 18,000 reviews that were listened for, search engine spidered and pulled into the tool. Now, again, it gets busy, right? You got to filter through the noise. And if you didn't have a proper analytics backend that's breaking down the data, you'd be left wondering of, wow, from a manual perspective, how are we going to figure out what all this data means? So using that and color coding, green, yellow, red, we made a trending topics data visualization widget, which basically is bringing out to the customers fourfold to let them know what are people saying about us, what are people saying about the data, and you can drive in to the data. So from a promoter's perspective, the greens, I can see 744 comments, 296 comments about fast and easy. I can click on it and immediately go to the root level data about what people are saying about the brand and so on and so forth. Now, on the passive side, otherwise seen as yellow, same thing. The data is automatically being parsed and categorized based on the trending topics that people are talking about frequently. Now, there's other ways we can set up the data visualization, John. So we can do sentiment trends in terms of positive, green, red being your detractors, yellow being your passives, and so on and so forth. Or key driver analysis. What are people saying about our business that are the key drivers that we need to focus on and make adaptive changes on to improve our brand? So the good thing is, this is a value add for us on our own that gives you the capability to go beyond just a tool that aggregates and gives you the ability to action out the data to respond. This is more about getting the data, being able to respond to the data, but more so understanding the data in real time so that something can be done about it.
Hey, I appreciate you going back into the tool and looking at from a platform perspective what some of the capabilities are. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. I think it's a very powerful solution. So I appreciate you taking the time to go back and just spend a little more time and taking a deeper dive on some of those widgets and some of the capabilities.
No problem. I'm here for you. Your wish is my command. But I mean, look, one of the things that I think everything we've led up to is like, what are the benefits of doing this, right? Like, why should I put as a business or a brand a huge amount of emphasis behind that hub, if you will, as part of my overall CX strategy to help increase transparently my overall brand resonance in terms of how I care, or how my business cares about the consumer on the internet. And there's so many different, I mean, this slide could be 50 bullet points long, but I think the single biggest things that I wanted to delve into really quickly is that ability to insulate your brand from unwanted sayings, unwanted expressions, unwanted attacks, where it could actually damage the perceptions, especially in today's age where online shopping has just in a 5x fold really became one of the most important and fastest growing segments in the world based on COVID. We don't want to have where people are going online and searching based and making decisions based on a Google review star rating, negative influence being based on your brand, and you're completely unaware of it. So that brand protection mechanism is one of the single biggest areas. And an offshoot of that, which I think is really important, is when businesses start to transparently and openly display that they care about their online presence, the good, bad, or the ugly. If it's a good review and they're responding to it saying, great, glad you had a happy time with us, wonderful that things went well. But that other side of the coin, John, which is, what about when negative reviews come in? Well, most companies right now aren't even seeing it because they don't have the social reputation management tool. But those companies that transparently open and empathetically engage with those negative reviews and handle them in a specific and very empathetic way, they actually build better brand resonance about what they're doing and what they're providing. And it has a direct correlation on not only revenues, but their overall customer experience scoring, which therefore can be translated into brand standards, how the brand presents itself and is perceived in the marketplace. The next one I think that matters the most is, just to flip back quickly here, you need to be able to measure what matters. And that data visualization that we were talking about earlier is really the key. It's the key to be able to understand what is being said about me, how frequently, and what can we do to our business processes to improve or tweak them in line with what is being said about us, not only from an unsolicited perspective, but more importantly as well, from a solicited perspective and having those integrated together. We have businesses that have literally changed a 180 in their business processes, in their operations, based on data that's coming back specifically from their customers' mouths. And that's where the rubber hits the road, John, is when your customers can tell you something and you can adapt and handle to what they're saying. Last but not least, scaling your interactions, John, super important. So what I was saying earlier about being able to from one pane of glass, aggregate all those digital ears that we've put on the ground in one screen makes it so simple for people to respond. And that, if anything, if you're looking to partner with a business, no matter which company it is, from a social reputation management perspective, it's that ability to pull in as many channels as possible. There really is a race to the amount of channels that's important for the vendors to be able to pull that in for businesses, so that they have no missed areas on the web that's being talked about their brand.
So I appreciate you, number one, sharing some of the success stories, and I also appreciate you sharing some of the benefits, right? But I think it's time for our next poll question, and we're going to kind of flip and talk about the other side of the coin a little bit, and we're going to ask the audience what their biggest challenges are with launching their social media strategy. So we're going to keep this open, and I'll be interested to get your take on it as somebody who's been working in the field and working in it every day.
Yeah, I'm seeing the questions for the first time here. This is good. So, identifying issues, scaling CX to handle volume, response times, and response quality. It's very interesting. I appreciate everyone chiming in for the polls. It's very helpful for us.
Yep, we're getting a pretty good response rate now. Oop, wow, the numbers are moving. I'm going to give it just about 10, 15 more seconds.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, it's good. Like parimutuel betting here.
Well said.
Hey, they just finished. Yeah, well, yeah, you can talk about my interests. Okay, so we're going to end the poll here at 45 seconds, and we're going to share these results. And then again, Jason, these are the challenges the audience are having within their social media, and you can see the response quality leads the pack here, and then response time and scale seem to be within second place. They're tied. So, what are your thoughts on that, and what are you seeing from a challenge perspective that organizations are facing?
Interesting. Well, first of all, it's very interesting. Response time. Let's start there. Just order of the way it's displayed. I
Okay.
think the big thing there with response time is, again, it comes back to being able to understand, number one, what the data is saying. I mean, most people don't even know what the length of time is for the amount of days or hours, which we can talk about in a minute, John, in terms of SLAs, for how their company itself is responding to those timelines. So data visualization for that is super important. You need a widget. It needs to be constructed and tied to it. I might as well go into it right now. I think the big whammy, the big bonus, if anyone wants to take away anything today as like a secret weapon for response times, some of the best businesses that we've interacted with social and reputation management have created and tied service level agreements internally in their brand, whether it's their team that's managing it or their partner like ibex that's handling it for them. And the tool needs to be able to be configured to activate a stopwatch, if you will. So for example, if John, you made a comment about my glasses today on our broadcast, and we had an SLA that we needed to respond and engage with John within less than 72 hours and resolve the issue that you brought forward within that time frame. There's gamification that's been attached to that from those brands. And so the question is why? Well, the answer why is we found statistically that when you solve a customer's issue under 72 business hours, not engage, but actually fully engage and resolve the issue, it has a direct correlation not only in the lift that comes from reviews, but more importantly, from a social sharing perspective, where those people will actually talk about the brand unsolicited and what you've done for them. So that there is a little hidden trick, but the tool needs to be able to be configured to handle service level timelines like that and the gamification behind it.
And then
In terms of
can I just ask
go ahead, John.
clarifying question on the gamification and the response time? Is that gamification via some type of alert or message to let people know that those response times are coming up on that 72 hours that you mentioned?
Right. The flow in the system from an issue resolution perspective has to be prompted in the tool to alert people in the business. So an email would get triggered. Let's just use the use case that say I run a social team and my team is managing it internally in my company. An alert would be triggered to those people to say, John expressed something about Jason's glasses. Here's what he said on Twitter or Reddit or wherever the case may be. And once that email gets triggered to those people, a stopwatch has now been activated, John, to track the length of time for those people to now engage from a CX or customer handling perspective to resolve that issue that was said. Now, the actual gamification behind it could be through badges and so on and so forth, that from a gamification perspective could be activated. But more importantly, we've seen incentive plans structured around it, promotional plans, spiffs, and so on and so forth for the social care teams that are managing that as part of the overall strategy.
I understand. No, I appreciate the clarification, and I think that's huge. That the fact that it's a push, not a pull, because it'll allow people to maintain, especially these deadlines. So thank you.
Right, and just very quickly, response quality. I don't want to forget about it because it's an important one. I think if I was to think about a customer experience manager or a social care manager and what they think about when they go to bed at night, I think one of the things that they're probably gazing into their sleep on is the flavor that's being utilized by people to interact with themselves as the brand correctly and accurately, so that doesn't seem disjointed. And that there, with response quality, ties together as one of the elements. There's many more elements for response quality, but that's the single biggest one. That there, you really need to have a partner that understands that flavor stack, how the brand operates, how it resonates, how it appears online, wording that they use, and so on and so forth. It's a key part of the social media strategy that I think a lot of people don't put a lot of emphasis on. So I'd like to highlight that based on your poll responses, and thank you for sharing, that's an area that cannot be forgotten. You definitely need a consultative partner with the pedigree to understand that flavor.
No, I appreciate it. Now, so what it kind of, so I guess we've talked a little, Jason, about the what, the why, and even the where being right on into the social realm. So now let's kind of delve into the how a little bit.
The how, okay. So, you know, if I was a participant right now, I'd be thinking, okay, I saw the software, it's pretty cool. You know, I'm biased, I know, but it's pretty cool. There's some graphic elements, there's analytics built in, that's cool. How does this all thread together? Like, is there anything that I need to do as a company that's complicated? And the answer is no. So what you're seeing on the screen here, and this is just a sample, is a good cross section of where on the internet we will configure on our side, not your side. We'll do it for you and with you. All the ears that we would place on the ground listening on your behalf. And we would tailor that based on the business profile of who you are, the vertical market that you deal in, and more importantly, your competitors, which I'm going to talk about in a second, because I think a lot of social reputation management tools forget about competitors. We've got a little bit of a secret there, John, coming in a second once I finish this section. So what we do is we place those ears, and on a real-time basis, it's listening for your brand and what people are saying about your brand from an unsolicited perspective. Now, earlier I mentioned that the race to the amount of channels that can be pulled in is the key of success for social reputation management. We pull from hundreds and hundreds of different areas online. And it's not just social media. A lot of people, you know, because it's social reputation management, they think it's just social media sites that need to be pulled. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, blogs are one of the most important areas and are becoming media outlets in their own right, where they need to be mined and listened to for brands. Press releases, another great area that not a lot of people talk about. That press announcement feedback that's coming out about brands need to have an ear placed there for sure. I think most importantly, though, commentary that's being made about brands other than just directly in social media channels needs to be integrated into an overall social media management tool. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was competitors. So before I go into the benefits of how to do this and what will flow as the benefits, John, competitors is an area that undoubtedly always seems to be forgotten about. So one of the things that we recommend that gets structured in a social and reputation management tool is the competitor analysis, where, as you can see here, click one, I have my competitor list here. And inside the system, based on the channels that I wanted to be listened to, I can see how my competitors are faring in their social media strategy as well. And why that's important is I can set that gamification again, right, John? Or those performance benchmarks against how my competitors are doing and my company exceeding them. So that's a secret little area that not a lot of thought goes into, which really encompasses the overall program for social reputation management to make sure that your business is definitely doing better than your competition in your geographic area. So I'm going to take a pause there to catch my breath, John. Any questions before I move on?
No, I just one point that's interesting. Again, I work in the financial services industry, and a lot of times we talk to clients and people that are very concerned about PII and confidential information. And something that just, it might seem very simple, but that could get lost is, hey, all of this information that you're mining that is out there, it's in the public domain. So be able to find your competitors' information, that's extremely powerful because it's not confidential. And it's already out there, and it's just out there, and to the original point of being untapped. So I just as you were kind of walking through that just it seemed a little bit obvious, but it's also very powerful to me because everybody's always concerned about confidentiality and PII. But in this case, this information's out there, and it's just a matter of figuring out how to tap into it.
You got it. That's the art of the deal, is being able to figure out how to get it, parse it, and display it. That's right. Well, listen, so what are the benefits? So, if I was out there as a participant, I'd be thinking, okay, I know what this does, I know how to do it, but what are the benefits of doing this? Well, I'm not going to go through every bullet, but I'll hit on the high, fast ones. I think the big thing that a lot of companies struggle with in terms of social reputation management out of the gate is just aggregation. It's a daunting thought process because there's so much data that is in disparate sources all over the web, and it doesn't just stop, right? Once you figure it out, things over there, right? And it's continuously going through a fire hose. So that ability to have one single pane of glass where all of that aggregation is coming into is paramount and is a tremendous benefit. The second thing beyond that is being able to have your teams trained and have the capability to be able to respond not only quickly, because it's not just about speed to response, and as based on the poll response we just saw, it's also about the quality of the response. So having a partner that works with you on the flavor training and how to respond and how to use the technology that whatever you might be using to respond in a timely manner, but in the right manner based on the brand standards is super important. The biggest thing though, John, is, and I'll say this again, and I've bolded and capitalized it for maximum effect, is one consistent platform to respond easily in. And why is that important? Well, if the social reputation management tool, no matter which vendor the brands that are listening are using, reside in one place, you got to think beyond that, which is, well, what about when we integrate the tool into an overall customer experience management tool and platform in the marketplace? And what's exciting about that is, for us, it bolts into our overall customer experience management platform. So in that case, you're not going to two systems that are amazing and have great data visualization. It's only one for both solicited feedback and unsolicited. You want to minimize the amount of standalone systems that are out there that your employees have to log into to effectively respond to customer experience and social reputation management issues as they're happening, because it gets cumbersome, it gets frustrating for them, and it just becomes too much to handle. It's a fire hose that just turns into an overwhelming stream. So simplicity is the key. One consistent platform to respond to easily, John.
And that goes back to what I think you were discussing earlier when you're showing the hub and spoke model on how things are integrated. So it's part of a holistic strategy.
You got it. That's right.
Excellent.
So if one tool was standalone and the business decided to evolve and expand their overall customer experience management program, it can be folded almost like a Lego block snapped into the overarching CEM program.
I understand. Well, Jason, and we're running up actually on the time, but we do have one more poll, and we do have time built in for Q&A. And actually, poll 3 is my favorite question, and so I would like to launch that. And then that is really from our audience perspective: does their current solution build trust with their customers?
Got it. Okay.
I'd be interested to not only see what the results are, but also your take on the results, as well as from your platform and your solution on, are you building trust with your customers?
Perfect. What a great question.
I will leave it open for about 10 more seconds. We're going to close this down. A pretty good response rate. Oh, this one's we've got a clear winner on this one.
Okay, I'm excited. What do you got?
So they're working on it. Issue resolution is a challenge. Is the first. There's 14% that do not have a solution, and 14% that's had major success managing their online reputation. So what are your comments on that? That they're working on it, that issue resolution is a challenge, because that issue resolution is also a challenge, Jason, on the contact center side.
Yeah, no doubt. Issue resolution, and the reason why this is a challenge is the feature function typically isn't available in the space right now. We lifted this feature function out of our actual Reflex customer experience tool and put it into our social reputation management tool, because we found ourselves when we were designing it that it's great that we have one single pane of glass. It's great that the data is going to come in, but it's not so great if the data is not being responded to in a timely manner. And more importantly, the issues that are coming in that actually need to be ticketed and responded to, there's no process behind that. There's no doubt that I'm surprised that 71% of people are having an issue with issue resolution, because so from a reputation management perspective, this feature function right here it's in its infancy within the marketplace. So I'm not shocked. You need a partner that definitely has this. The reason being, as I mentioned earlier, it's not about just responding and handling in a quick time frame. The most important thing is the closure of the issues through the process of issue resolution out the other side to where the customer has been satisfied, because it also gives you the capability at that point, once the issue is resolved, to interact with the customer and ask them based on the work that was done to remedy their situation, if another review can be given. And that's the needle that starts moving, John, quicker than most for star rating reviews online publicly. That needle needs to move quick.
I understand. So we're going to actually, Jason, I appreciate the insights into that. We're going to now move into the Q&A portion of the program.
My favorite time.
Yeah, no, it's good. So let me see here. I'm checking. There's give me 1 second. That's some administrative stuff going on here. I'm checking the Q&A results. All right. So the first question we have, based on your experience, how long will it take to move my brand's social reputation score if we're actively managing it, utilizing the platform you displayed?
Wow, what a great question. So whoever asked that question, thank you. It's a little bit of a loaded question, but it's okay. I'm not going to shy away from it. So the direct answer to that question is it's dependent on the brand that we're dealing with, right? Because some of the brands that we partner with are very small, some are mid-sized, some are very, very large organizations. And what can predicate success quicker than others is the processes that get laid around the social reputation management tool and how the business responds to those processes and puts them into place so quickly. The average length of time, just to answer the question directly and transparently, in a scenario where things are ticking along well, good partnership, good consultative approach, working together symbiotically with our clients, usually we start to see needle increases specifically on the review side of things online within the 60 to 90 day window. That's our average where we'll see that, John. But again, all things created equal, there's a lot of moving parts to make that happen, but that's a good safe answer to give transparently with conviction.
Oh, no, I appreciate that, Jason. All right, so our second question comes from Rob, who works for a large healthcare company.
Okay.
At what point should a company currently doing this in-house start to consider outsourcing?
Okay, so in this particular case, I would need to know a little bit more data, down the line. So Rob, I think my email address at some point will be floated on the screen. Please email me. But what we need to know out of the gate is, what is the current practice internally? How many people are in that department? How many people, what are their functions and core responsibilities or their role? Once we get a handle around that, the next step from there will be implementation to understanding how that's working from a response time perspective, reviews, and your flavor. And once you start getting to a point where it seems or feels, that's a magic word, like there's a lot going on and it's too much to handle, this could be an optimum situation where a business behind the business, just such as ibex, can start helping you scale and taking that externally into our world to help you. We also have seen another aspect, which is businesses that are prone to scale. They know it's coming, right? And it doesn't mean from their infancy. They could be a multinational corporation, but they know that there's a stair step of scaling to happen. They proactively will start saying, okay, we need to lessen cost here, but we don't want to lose control of our messaging, our flavor, our response times, et cetera. And that's a good opportunity there with your partner to bring them in to provide the overall plan that they have for training, which is the most important thing, and all of the what we call pitfall handling, what the responses will be in certain scenarios. So those are the two most common areas where we're being tapped to come in, investigate, do discovery, and then put forward to you our solution or recommendation of when that time could be.
No, I appreciate the answer, Jason. But I'll make sure we get Rob and everybody who answered the question your email address if it is not displayed on the screen. All right, I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. This next one is from Latoya. She works for a large retailer. Okay. Being new to social reputation management, what do you think will be the biggest hurdle my organization will have to overcome?
Well, especially for a retailer. Okay, so I think out of the gate, John and Latoya, thanks for the question, is the number one thing we see is just the overwhelming feeling of where do I start? And as simple as that sounds, it really is a daunting thought process for brands because there is so much ground to cover. And that fire hose, as I mentioned earlier, is repetitively flowing. So if brands are starting, typically when they're starting, what that means is they're manually going online to different areas to uncover that data and try and keep on top of that flow that's coming out of the hose. And it just becomes overwhelming, John. So that there is the single biggest issue that I see or hurdle is just getting in the game per se or starting and making sure that the partner that you select has the technology, number one, analytics would be number two, number three, issue resolution, huge, we talked about that, competitor profiling so you can benchmark against that. But the most important thing inside of all that technology is the amount of areas or channels that those ears can be placed on digitally to obtain that data, right? Having 5 places when there's 2,000 relevant to your brand, that's not going to be good enough to take you to the next level. It may get you started, but that start will become a false start very quickly and you'll have to retrench and start over. So I think that there, John, would be the single biggest hurdle is stepping out of the blocks, if you will, quickly, cleanly, and into rhythm.
And thanks for the answer. And having a partner to help you step out of those blocks cleanly is going to be really key to your success too.
You betcha. I mean, hey, absolutely.
I got you. So, hey, Jason, we have time for one final question. This comes from Rebecca. And Rebecca asks, can ibex help manage responses or is it the sole responsibility of the client?
So great question, Rebecca. To clarify that, we can. So internally as a partner or to be your business behind the business, your social media partner, our agents can actually be trained effectively to handle all of that response data that needs to be going back in the conversational side of things with your clients. So we definitely can do that. We don't necessarily need you to staff your team internally. We definitely could be a partner for you there.
Excellent. Well, Jason, we are out of time. I just wanted to thank you very much for an extremely informative and lively discussion today. It was an absolute pleasure. I learned quite a bit just by hosting this webinar with you.
Well, John, thank you. And listen, hosting is the most difficult spot to be in. So you did great. And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be alongside of you and share some knowledge, the tip of the spear, if you will, with everyone that attended. There's lots more. As you can tell, I love to talk. I love to just, go on and help people with this kind of stuff. So please don't be shy. Feel free to reach out, and I'd be more than willing. And it would be a privilege to meet with you all and talk more about this at a deeper level.
All right. Well, thank you, Jason. And thank you to everybody in the audience for joining today. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.
You too. Take care, everyone.